Oh, are we audio recording? Oh, sweet. How can you tell if someone is good just through a phone screen? That's our topic today. This is the second video in our series on video interviewing, and we're talking about the phone screen. I'm Rick Girard, and welcome to the Higher Power Radio Show. Our mission is to help entrepreneurs and hiring managers avoid costly hiring mistakes by identifying a specific problem and providing proven solutions to enable your company to win the right hire. We share insights from top-performing rebel entrepreneurs, disruptors, and industry experts like our guest today, Mr. John Driscoll. John is the co-founder and CEO of Naked Development. So we're doing this a little differently than our last episode. It's going to be an interactive episode, and I'm really happy to have you joining us today, John. Thanks for doing so, and welcome to the Higher Power Radio Show.
Yes, thanks, Rick. I appreciate you having me on the show here.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you, and thanks for helping me out. I really appreciate it. So we're gonna break this down into two parts, right? So we're gonna talk about the phone screen and the power of a phone screen in your interview process to make sure that you're most effective in saving time. Now, when I'm talking about phone screen, this can be done via video or via phone. It works just as well either way. I prefer video, just like I think John does as well, because of the fact you get to see somebody, you get to see how they react to questions, their facial expression. It's just a much better medium. But
you get to ask them why they have weird paint on their wall in the background. Yeah, you know.
I wasn't going to call you out on that either.
I was trying to decide colors on the wall. I just haven't painted yet. Yeah,
it's your Van Gogh. We'll just call it your Van Gogh.
Okay. Yeah.
There we go. All right. So the key points for the episode, we're going to talk about the phone screen. We're going to break it down into what you're trying to extract out of the phone screen, the most important pieces. And then we're going to do a little role play, right, John? And we're going to talk
We're going to try.
So we're going to run through a role play on a recruiting call, actually a phone screen call. So now, as I mentioned in the last episode, we talked a little bit about your format for your interview process. The phone screen is a really key piece of it, and I think if you shortcut it, you're killing yourself. I mean, that can save you so much time in an interview process and bringing the right people on board. So the ideal timing for a phone screen, most people do it in 5 to 10 minutes. I say flip it, and you should be doing it in about 45 minutes to an hour at most.
Wow.
And the reason being is because you want to dig deep into 3 components to make sure that this person is going to be the right person for your organization. So, John, let me ask you, how long do you typically spend on a phone screen?
I felt bad when you said 40 minutes. I feel like it's generally about 10 to 15, maybe. I feel like, about 10 to 15, because normally my goal for that call, and I'm learning here too, as you're saying all this stuff, I'm really, our conversation's been really good, is I'm trying to eliminate wasting time down the road with them. Yeah. Right. I'm trying to basically find any red flags, find anything that is a complete deal killer up front before I invest more time, essentially.
Okay. So what do you put that on, just out of curiosity?
Well, a lot of times we're talking about, for sure, let's just say, for instance, we're going to role play, maybe in this instance, is if I'm hiring an engineer or something like that, I'm trying to see if they have the right skill set to even be qualified for the job, right? So should I even be on the phone with this person at this point? Because a resume doesn't do it. You got to dig in a little bit more, right? So I'm trying to eliminate things like that.
Okay, perfect. All right, so let's dig into these components. So the reason I say it's 45 to 60 minutes is because when you're doing a phone screen, you have the opportunity to do a couple different things. You have the opportunity to, one, build a relationship and make your company stand out from your competitors. And if it's somebody who's actively on the market, you want to give yourself a competitive edge. Even if they're not the right person, you still want to give good candidate experience. You still want to put them in a position where they enjoy and they get value out of that conversation. If it's a quick kind of wham bam thank you man type thing, which most of us do, that's transactional. And in the mind of the person you're trying to recruit, whether you know it or not, it's just common, like what everybody else is doing. So we want to make sure that we're standing out from our competitors. And 2, you really want to focus in on understanding who this person is as a person and whether or not they align with your core company values. That's really key. And I don't think a lot of us do that. I know I didn't do it for probably the first half of my career as a recruiter. It was always these quick, hey, what skills do you have? How do you rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10? All right, walk me through a little piece of code you wrote. And then I go straight to how much you're looking to make and all those.
The typical questions. Yeah.
Right. But the problem with those they're not about the person. It's about you and saving your time. And the other person on the other end of the line doesn't see any value out of that conversation. They're not gaining any value. So candidate experience has been kind of become a really hot buzzword, but companies who do it really well have had the ability or given themselves the ability to really cherry pick really good talent. And in this market, my argument is that right now you have the opportunity to be able to cherry pick and upgrade and really elevate the level of performance within your organization because there are so many good people that are, to no fault of their own, being displaced. Right? So so what's really important is you break it down, the components of the phone screen, into 3 things that you want to find out. And this is a person's why, what, and how, right? So I call it the pain, the desire, and the impact. These 3 pieces are something that I'm looking to find out. So the very first thing that I'm doing is I'm leading into a conversation is I want to understand why this person's talking to me. So there's a lot of statistics out there. They could be just looking for a job and they need a paycheck, which is okay, but you need to make sure that that person's going to align well with the organization. But more importantly, people who are good, who are working, they've got some sort of something that's happened in their career. Maybe they're not moving forward. They're not able to grow. The content of the work is getting kind of boring, or there's leadership issues. And those tend to be the big 3 that I come across most of the time when I talk to candidates or talk to people who are potentially open to talking. And then what I want to do is I want to understand what those pains are, right? So if somebody actually has a pain like, we just brought in a whole bunch new leadership staff. They're pushing all of their other people. Well, what are you doing to stay? You want to understand really the underlying issues of what's going on and how deep that pain is for them, right? People feel unappreciated, under-challenged, underutilized. So great. Give them the opportunity to explore that with you and tell you what that is.
Now, and those are the real opportunities, right, Rick? Like, I feel like, sorry to cut you up there, but it just feels like, I feel like the opportunities often are someone who is in an existing job, is not finding that fulfillment that they maybe had hoped when they got there, right? Maybe they got sold into a bad scenario, right? They got massive talent and they're just not seeing how they saw their life going. And I feel like those are the people I most look for, like, because I feel like I can offer them so much more than what they currently have.
And those are fantastic people to pick off. The truth is that, again, you mentioned something, they were sold a bill of goods. Most people take a job under one assumption, and once they start, it's a completely different picture. That happens really often. Now, what you do want to watch out are what I call self-inflicted pain or, self-inflicted wounds, right? So there's a lot of people that will just always be open and they're shopping. You have a lot of people that are like, well, if somebody pays me more money, then I've got an open ear. Money is often never somebody's motivator unless they're grossly underpaid. So if somebody said, hey, I took a pay cut of half my salary, there's no reason to continue a conversation with somebody if it's all about the money.
I can't tell you how many times I've had a conversation with somebody years later that maybe left because they wanted more money and they, they had personal goals, and I get it. And I respected it at the time and wished them well. I had this happen recently, actually, with an employee, and it was like, I could not pay that amount. And I just said, go for it. And he actually said, wow, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be.
When they joined the other company?
Yeah, they just came back and they said, I wasn't fulfilled like I thought, because really in the end, the money really isn't as important as they think it is until they get there. Yeah.
No, and what I found too is that a lot of times when people take a job at another place for more money, they're going into a complete shit show. And, it's a train wreck. And that's why the company is willing to pay them more money.
Yeah. And the culture that they went into didn't juice them up, didn't make them want to wake up in the morning, didn't make them want to work late at night. It didn't give them all the things that they really maybe had in a culture that was better, that maybe paid them a little less,
Yeah, exactly. And your happiness is far more important than the paycheck a lot of times.
I think so. I think it's hard to convince people of that when they're in that predicament, right? When they have to make that decision. Yeah.
That's true. All right. So the second piece is actually the desire. So the second piece that I'd like to dig into is exactly what is it that this person wants to do, or they desire more, greater than what they have right now. So what is the environment in which this person is going to thrive? This is really important. Now, some people have not given it much thought. Again, it's something like where, I'm just looking for a job. Some people have actually thought about it quite a bit. And usually somebody who has a really deep pain will know exactly where they do well. So a vision for the type of company they're going to be successful in. And again, you're getting this information before you share anything about your company. So I usually try to separate my company from this person's vision of where they're going to be successful. So if you're trying to recruit somebody at Google, right? And you're thinking, gosh, I really want this guy out of Google, but he's only been at large companies. He or she has only been at large companies, and they're comfortable in that sort of environment. And you're trying to get that person to join you from a small startup. They have to really want to be at a small startup in order for that person to, even be considered. There's no reason to chase somebody who's really not going to be happy in your environment. And people will share this with you pretty openly when you have these conversations with them.
Yes.
So we're going to delve into that a little bit deeper. But this is where you find out whether or not somebody's a cultural fit, because they're going to tell you where they're going to align, where they're not going to align. And I'm a diligent note taker, so I take notes about all of this. And I really focus in on, okay, well, what type of culture do you do best in and why? And what's important with a lot of this is when they give you answers to ask why. This is my favorite thing, and we'll get into that in the role play. The third piece of this is now you want to know how good the person is. Do I have an A, B, and C or C player? Do I have somebody who's a high performer? Do I have somebody who's just, sometimes I like to classify them as you have builders, you have improvers or, tweakers, and then you have maintainers. So builders are typically the type of people that you want in an organization like a startup. You just want people who can kind of come in, they can figure out the roadmap, make it happen. Those are the people that you want to hire. So the impact is giving you the evidence that person to support moving forward with an interview. Does that make sense, John?
Okay. Yeah, it totally does. Yeah.
So I'm going to dig into not their skills, but I'm going to have them walk me through something that they did that was impactful to the business, either from a monetary or a time-saving perspective, or something that something they were recognized by leadership for doing. High performers will find things that are broken and fix them. And that's what you want to find.
Love those people in a startup. You have to have those people in a startup because
so true.
They have to be comfortable with a lot of responsibility.
They do. Yeah. I think we all do. We are as entrepreneurs, right? I mean, and you have to be comfortable just diving in and making things happen.
Yes.
So those are the 3 points that I'm looking at. And so the key of those 3 things is if those 3 things are all in alignment, now I move forward with the rest of a conversation. And that's going to eat up, that part of a conversation is going to eat up a good 30 minutes, maybe even 45. And then the rest of it is kind of easy. But the impression that you give people as you bring them through the interview, they're not used to that from anybody. And so you care to listen to that individual, and that automatically you become that much more attractive. Now, if they don't fit at any point, let's say their desire is completely different than who you are, then you can politely say, hey, you know what? That's not us. And I would love to talk to you a bit more, but what you want is we're not going to be able to fill those needs for you. And you have to be open and honest with yourself, because your need to fill sometimes overwhelms, your desire to get that position filled overwhelms your common
that's what's
sense.
funny about the interviewer. Sometimes you can feel rejected in the process, right? And you need to just be honest and just go, this is not a good fit of a relationship. It's almost like a dating relationship. This is just not a good fit. Let's just cut our losses right now, right?
It's not me, it's you, right?
Yeah.
No, but it is. What happens is that people appreciate the fact that you can give them closure too at that point. So I'm not going to be able to help you out. We don't fit, but thank you so much. And then guess what? Now you've opened the door that you can probably ask for a referral of somebody they might know who might be more in alignment with your company.
Yeah.
So because I've given first, I've understand it, and I've understood that person, and I put myself in a position where, I've got a good rap going with that person. Now, now I've done good by them first, right?
Yeah.
So that's how you give good customer or candidate experience, I guess. I'm trying to break out of that recruiting talk. All right. So, hey, John, we had an idea earlier. We were going to do a role play.
Okay.
So I want to do a live action of this, if you'll indulge me.
Okay. I'm going to indulge you. Yeah.
All right, cool. So my role is going to be, I'm going to be a hiring manager calling you and recruiting you.
Okay.
And your role is going to be to give me a hard time. No, but to think of your ideal person that you would naturally hire, and kind of be that persona, be that avatar, if you would.
Okay.
Sound good?
Yeah.
All right. So when you open up a phone call, and I've got this all scripted out, I'll include it in the show notes, but when I open up a phone call, the very first thing that I'm going after is, hey, thanks for reaching out if they were engaged with me at some point. But before I kind of dig into why I'm calling you, I wanted to find out what's happening in your current role that has you open to hearing about something potentially stronger. Okay,
so you're ready for me to role play this. Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, so I think what I'm looking for is an exciting opportunity to really showcase my talents and what I think I can bring to the table. And it's not that my current job isn't challenging me. It's just that I think I have more to offer than maybe what I'm able to do right now. Yeah, I think the response.
Oh, you got you locked up, John.
Oh, sorry.
I got you locked up. So, go start over again.
Okay. All right. Sorry. So I think I'm not given enough responsibility to be able to make decisions and really to, run my department the way that I really want to. Okay.
So why is it that you think that you're not given enough responsibility?
Well, I just think it's the philosophy of the company. And I think they have a current viewpoint that it's more of a top-down kind of thing. And I'm really looking for a company that really is trying to showcase, people's abilities and really allow them to run their own departments the way that they feel they should be able to. Okay, got it.
Okay, so what we're doing here, this is actually a good kind of...
I haven't interviewed in a long time, Rick. It's been 25 years. So
I'm putting you in the spot, so this is kind of fun. But so what I'm going to do is fun, yeah. I'm going to stop it right there. But you want to keep digging in on really what that is and how deep that is, right? So you want to understand why is this important to you? Okay, and then there's a natural progression where you, as the candidate or the person who I'm interviewing or talking to, tends to go into what they want to do. We're not there yet. So, they'll lead you to that path, right? Which is, you just kind of.
I felt like I already did when you were asking those questions. I kind of just took you there just by answering the question, right?
Exactly. But you want to understand, really, how big of an issue it is for this person. That's really the key thing. I want to understand why this is important to you, how this is affecting your daily life, your family, how you feel about it, how you feel about yourself. That's what I want to make sure that I'm covering and I'm digging in and understanding. And then, then we're going to lead into the next part, which is actually kind of easy. So it's an easy transition. Okay, well, I get where you are, John, and I understand kind of that you like to get more out of your role. So give me an idea of what you think, if you could design your next company from scratch, what would that look like for you?
Well,
now you can just.
I think. Yeah. Well, I think I'm actually going to use some real things that I've learned.
Okay.
That to answer this question, which is, I think what I'd want to do is bring a group of individuals who have like-minded philosophy on how to do technology and how to do the creative side of what we do. And if we could see the world the same, then I think we can design a company that, could really do some significant work. And for me, philosophy first. You have to believe the same things in order to be successful.
Okay, so walk me through what like-minded philosophy is to you.
Yeah, so, simplicity of design for us in technology, it'd be simplicity of design, really focused on, well, I think not having, trying to build too much at once, really having a true minimum viable product, which is, what we really focus on, which is simplicity of software, really finding the philosophy we have is what we call the hot dog. It's by Jason Fried and his book Rework, little plug for that book. And is the idea of a core concept and really building that and building with iterations after that. So people who really see that the same, really know and believe the same things, and those are the people I want to work with.
Okay, so simplicity. What other components are important to you?
Well, I think also management style. I think it has to do with accountability, transparency, but not micromanagement. Not believing that you need to have a meeting every single day. Wasting a lot of time with managers and meetings, the M&Ms, and kind of staying out of that world and trying to be efficient with our time and allowing ourselves to have, alone time so we can do our work.
Okay, got it. Now I'm usually going to dig deeper on that and kind of really understand it, right? But for the sake of this episode, so the other pieces that I really want to understand is, okay, so what type of culture do you do best in? What size company or what size organization do you feel that you're best in? Now, this is kind of a tricky one because a lot of people will say something like, well, I do good in really any environment, which can be true, but not really. I think there's a lot of people that are wired. Builders don't do well in a maintainer role, right? So if you stick somebody who's a builder into just into a small lane at a large company, they're not going to do as well. So that's really what you have to kind of really suss out. What type of role they're looking to play, and then the domain, right? So where their interests lie, what technology, what industries, where are they most excited about? So that kind of gives me an idea of what where their passions lie. And then the third piece is going to actually be the impact. So this is now, if I'm in alignment with both of these pieces, now these are all check boxes. If somebody doesn't have pain, you cut the call, move on. If somebody's desire is completely different than what your company is, you cut it, you move it on. But
would you just cut the call in the middle of that conversation, Rick?
I wrap it up with them. I say, hey, look at, and I give people closure. So I think it's really important to say, hey, look at, like, for example, if we're talking about pain and they don't really have a pain, they say, well, I'm really happy here, but I always entertain more money. Well, I totally get that, but you should just stay where you are. There's no reason to talk to anybody if you're really happy there. And sometimes that's a defense mechanism that people put up to kind of screen you out. But again, if you're introduced to somebody, you're not going to get that as much. But so I will wrap it up at whatever point and just let them know that, hey, look at, this is going to be a fit, and here's why, and we both agree upon it, and we part as friends. Again, people appreciate that quite a bit. The third piece that we're going to talk about is the impact. And so the way that I lead into that is, tell me about the most significant impact you've made in your current role. And what I mean by that is, walk me through a project that you took on outside of the scope of your job, and something that's tied to either increasing revenue or saving time for the company, or leadership recognized you for the contribution that you made in some sort of way. Now, a lot of people kind of hem and haw about this, and they start telling you a little bit about, well, I've got 4 years of this, 5 years of that. And they kind of go into their lane of what they're used to talking about. So you're going to have to pull them out and go, no, like, walk me through a project. So they'll start telling you about something that they've worked on. So there's two things to look out for. So if somebody has, we're not touching skills, we're just talking about a project. If somebody's identified a problem and they've actually taken it upon themselves to do it and fix it and move on from it, they'll usually tell you that problem. If somebody just kind of stays in their lane and what they do is kind of the work they've agreed upon, that's okay too. But that's kind of what they're going to do. So it gives you a little bit of a snapshot.
You know what you're getting.
Yeah. Gives you a snapshot as to, like, really how much management needs to go into this person. So then dig deep. Okay. So I'm going to ask you that. So John, walk me through tell me about the most significant impact you've had in a current project that you worked on.
It's funny, and now I want to switch gears on who I'm hiring right now, because I want to give a personal example. Maybe I'll just do that anyways. I'm going to give a personal example that I actually really felt was a big thing. Is, I was in a current role, and where we were basically doing like what most consultants do, and we were trying to scope out projects ahead of time and try to extract what this person, wanted to build. And what I did is I switched gears, and I decided to sell, instead of trying to win projects through scoping over the phone in a quick haphazard manner, I switched it, and we started to charge a consulting fee up front, so that we could truly go through that and do through a discovery phase and sell projects that way. And so by solving that problem, we increased revenue, and we also, I think, increased the quality of the work that we were doing for people. And it seemed to be a fair exchange between us and the client. And, it was a huge thing for our company. This is something I personally did. It made it was just seeing a problem and trying to solve it,
Yeah. And see, you want to look for that sort of example with the people that you're interviewing. So that's really what's kind of key there. So I will actually dig into, so let's say, for example, you were to say, look, I saw there was a problem with the UI that we had, and nobody was available to fix it. So I just stepped in. I'm not even a UI person, but what I did was I just stepped in. I kind of went in, and there was a bunch of issues with whatever, right? I stepped in, I fixed the problem, and I was actually able to increase performance by X%. And as a result, we didn't lose a major client that we were on the verge of losing. See, those sort of things are what you're kind of looking for. Right.
Well, especially in a startup. Especially in a startup, you need, everybody has to take initiative. We have a motto at our company. It says, "We are leaders." It's on a big chalkboard wall, huge letters. We are leaders. Everybody is a leader in the building. You see a problem, lead and fix it. It's not, don't look for somebody else to fix it. It is, you saw it. It is now your job to fix it because you saw it. And that's a motto that we live by.
Yeah, and see, you probably have a culture of builders, right? You have people
no question. Yeah.
So that's good that you're kind of keying in on that. The other thing is, so I'm going to dig into how you did things. Now, what's interesting is sometimes what happens here is people talk about, we did this, we did that. So I don't want to know what you and your team did. I want to know what you did specifically and then how you did it. So make sure that you go deep on these. That's super important to understand exactly the impact that somebody made. Because again, you get a lot of we, and sometimes people kind of stretch the truth a little bit because their goal is get the interview with you, and then they can talk about whatever then. But this is really important that you understand, don't wrap up this piece until hey, look at, I've got an A player here. I've got somebody who's really a high performer. That's really important. If that's what your culture is. If you don't need a high performer, if you just need somebody who can come in and maintain code or do something like that, then it should be specific to the role. And then I'm going to get into skills. I'm going to talk a little bit about, okay, so walk me through what your core strengths are. So this is the part where we usually go, okay, walk me through your skills. So we've gone through this after I have an understanding of what this person does from a performance perspective. And then, as you know, John, I know as well, skills can be taught. So the main point here is that you've got somebody who fits into your organization. Skills are really not as important because really smart people who are good at, who are high performers can figure things out. And that gives them motivation to join your company too, because they're doing something different than what they've been doing. There's growth, right? So I'm going to talk about the skills. I'm going to delve into that. I don't spend really a whole lot of time on it. I just poke holes into, okay, so if somebody asked you to write a line of code in that, in Perl and in, an array or something like that, how would you do it, right? So I might poke some little holes in there, but for the most part, I know what I have at this point. Then I can find out, commute, where they're interviewing. Now, this is kind of an interesting question because it's really important for pacing purposes for you. So do I need to get off, do I need to get this person in tomorrow because this person's expecting an offer, or do I have some time? So I'm going to properly pace out the interview process for them, and I'm going to let them know that, hey, in order for me to pace out the process, where are you interviewing? And you don't need to know the names of the companies, but you can also ask where they are in the process. So I've got a third interview with XYZ company. I've got a second with, a lot of times they share the names with you. That gives you a little competitive advantage because they're not really sharing it with everybody else. Usually that first part of this conversation allows that person to trust you. So they share a lot more information than they typically would in a very transactional 5 to 10 minute call. So the interviewing piece is pretty important. Then you find out, work authorization status. I don't deal with salary until the end. So I'll usually ask, what's your availability for an interview this week? And then because I have to ask, what are your minimum salary requirements? What are you looking to make in your next organization? Just give me a ballpark. In California, you can't ask for their salary, but you can get an idea of what they're looking to make. And you can let them know. They may throw it back to you and say, well, what's the salary range for this role? Which you can give them a range, and you can let them. You can usually talk about that. If they share their salary with you, great. But in most cases, they'll give you a range of what they're looking to make. Right. That's why I worded, what is your minimum salary requirements? Because that gives me an idea of what their bar is, what their low point is. So then the very last question that I wrap up with, and this is a really important question on a phone screen. So what are 3 or 4 main criteria that you need to see within an organization for you to accept an offer with them? So this is giving me basically how they're prioritizing the things that they told you were their pain and their desire, and how they're going to make a decision on an offer. This gives you the tools to, if you get to an offer, to close them. I don't call it closing, it's more opening, right? You're opening them up to joining your company. So for all intents and purposes, 3 or 4 main criteria that they're gonna use to base their decision on joining or not joining your company. And usually you'll get a mirror of what you got in the beginning. But what's really interesting is that they they don't try to, but I think psychologically people prioritize what's more important to them. So the order in which it comes out is actually what they're going to probably like their level of importance of everything. So sometimes somebody will lead with salary. Salary is important to them. So I can kind of go back and test that. So you listed salary as number one. Why is that the most important thing to you, John? Right. So that gives me a really good snapshot of what it is you're going to accept. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's important to know because you want to see if you're in the ballpark, right? Like you need to understand how big of a factor is money for them. Some people don't put enough importance. Some people put too much importance, right? So you want them to be a little motivated to make more money.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Yeah,
absolutely. We all take jobs, and the paycheck is the main reason. We got to support our families. We have to do what we need to do to pay our bills, right? So there's money's not evil here, but if that's your only motivation, then that's not the best motivation for you to be.
Yeah, then especially if you're hiring for a startup, it's not a good, there has to be a lot more they're in it for than money because they're probably not going to get as much as they would if they went and worked for a larger company. That's just part of the deal.
Yeah, exactly. They're not, but they're going to have a lot more impact. And if that's important to them, if they told you that's what's important to them, now you gave them that growth opportunity they were looking for. So there's
more upside, right? There's more upside on the potential, and that's what they're really in it for. Yeah.
Now, here's where a lot of companies fail at the end too, is that you've had this conversation, you invested a lot of time into this, Chris, like John, thank you for sharing all that information for me, with me. So here's where I see you fit the opportunity. Now you can start talking about your organization, your role, kind of what things are. And I encourage you to be super honest, brutally honest about who you are, what you are, and tell the person where they fit, where the things that are important to them fit, and where you're off. Companies don't do this. They just kind of go, oh, great, let's just bring you in for an interview. And then, so I might say, hey, John, look, you told me that you're looking for a culture that's an open culture. Everybody's working. We have offices here where we put like 2 to 3 people in an office. We do have collaboration, but it's not a big open working space. That's where I see we're a bit off. Is that important? How important is that to you? And let them kind of tell you.
Yeah.
What it is. Right. Or it may be, hey, I like to have my own space. I like to go up in a room and code, and I don't want to be bothered when I have my headphones on.
Yep.
If that's the case, and that's really not your environment, then again, let them know and let them make the decision. Let them know where they fit and where they don't. If they don't fit, great. And if they fit, fantastic, right?
Well, even the idea of remote work now is like how many days, like for us, how many days in the office are you going to want me to be there? For us, we generally only require people to be there 3 days a week. We let people work remotely.
3 days a week right now, right?
Well, right now, nobody's working. Yeah, there's one guy in the office.
Exactly.
Yeah, but that's it. Most people are working from home like me. But even on a normal basis, we encourage remote work in a certain ratio, right? And so I think some people now are interviewing with the lifestyle that I don't have to be on a freeway every day. I should be able to stay home certain days. And I think that's a relevant question. That's a great lifestyle opportunity for people.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Most definitely. And with that, now, like if the person's interested, invite them in for an interview for the next round. And so again, your next round is going to be video interviews, and we're going to cover that in our next segment next week. But basically, now you're going to move them forward in the process, and you got a very viable person that most likely you will hire if they make it through that piece. So, John, any other thoughts that you'd like to add to this?
No, I feel like I learned a ton because I feel like I'm unorthodox, and I think you're going to make me even more unorthodox by some of the things that you do. My role is generally the last interview. And then I'm the last, they've done a lot of that groundwork before they got to me. And my role is what I call the cultural interview. I'm trying to find out whether they're a builder. You nailed it. That's exactly what I'm looking for. Whether they're in my what I believe is a leader, that they're going to find problems and solve them and not wait for management to solve problems. That's not something I believe in. So yeah, I felt like, even the idea of a longer call, I feel like I learned a ton about that. And I don't do video interviews, and I feel like I should. I feel like maybe I should do that, especially now.
Well, hopefully you'll help me out with the next one, and we'll actually talk about the video interviews, and we'll get that dialed in for you as well.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, perfect. Well, we're going to post all this in our show notes, so anybody who's interested, you can reach out to me and gather some more information. Thanks for joining me on this Friday, John. Thank you so much for taking the time and tuning in. Now, if anybody's interested in finding out more about you and your company, how would they reach you?
Oh yeah, just go to nakeddev.com, DEV.com, or you can find us on Instagram at nakeddev as well. And please DM us. I often answer that myself.
All right, perfect. Well, I want to thank our listening audience for tuning in to this special edition of the Higher Power Radio Show. Quick thanks to our team, Christopher Decker, Shanti Ryle, Andrea Girard, Ariel Kramer, and Ayla Girard. And please subscribe and join the podcast. We are launching a new podcast website next week, so I would love to get your guys' feedback. And as always, if you have any questions, drop me a line at rick@stridesearch.com. So thanks for tuning in to this special episode. I'm your host, Rick Girard, and thank you for listening to the Higher Power Radio Show. Aloha.
Thanks again. Bye.
Yeah, we're going to keep it going for just a second. Well, we kind of disconnect. John, thanks so much, man. You were awesome.
No problem for sure.
So cool. So yeah, if you can do it next week, and we can do again your content that we talked about. I actually put together a list of some funny companies we can work with as well.
Oh yeah. I'm really wanting to do that list. That'd be cool. I'd be interested also to find out.
All right,
I know you.
Let me call you offline in a few minutes. He's going to disconnect right now.
No worries.
Okay.
Oh, actually, you know what?